Greetings, YouTube. I've met a lot of people in my day, and in the conversations, it often rolls around to our personal histories. And sometimes it's because we're talking about food or family illnesses, things like that. And inevitably, it comes around to the fact that I'll mention that I'm diabetic. Sometimes it's the first conversation, sometimes it's the fifth, but eventually it's going to come up. And haven't ever had anybody guess I was diabetic. They're like, "Oh, you are," um, because my diabetes is invisible. You can't see it. There's no way of looking at me and saying, "Hey, that person's diabetic," as opposed to say, if you're Nick Fury, you're obviously wearing an eye patch for a reason. That's a non-invisible illness or disability. But invisible illnesses and invisible disabilities exist, and we need to respect those even if we can't see them. If somebody says, "No, I'm okay," you have that, I'm diabetic, you need to not push it on them. You need to not ask why someone isn't eating XYZ or drinking XYZ. Um, Also, respects people's desire not to drink alcohol just because they don't want to drink alcohol. They could have a reason for it medically, but they could just not want to drink alcohol. Don't push it on them. That's tacky. But all the time, I'll see people using devices that are traditionally associated with a visible disability, but because they are using this device, but they don't have any obvious thing that would make you think, okay, this person's using this device, a cane or a chair or something. Because they're young and they're using a cane, people are like thinking it's an affectation. They're just doing it for attention. When in actuality, you can be any age, require a cane or a wheelchair, require one of those little carty things at the grocery store. Could be a permanent injury, could be temporary. Somebody could have a bum knee because they had a skiing accident, so they want to use the cart right now. That makes perfect sense. They don't want to walk around. But we need to respect people for that. We need not to call them on it. I've lost track of how many times I've heard about people that have been publicly condemned because they didn't appear to be disabled or ill, so they should not be able to be using a wheelchair or parking in a handicap zone, even though they have a handicap sticker on their vehicle hanging off their rear mirror. So that's just horrible. I heard of a case recently, or not that long ago, where someone was not handicapped. There was a handicap thingy hanging off the vehicle's rear mirror because they were borrowing somebody's car, and they didn't park in a handicap zone. They parked far away because that particular day the only place they could park was the end of the parking lot. But they didn't care. They aren't disabled, so they got out, did their thing, and as they're trying to get out of the vehicle and do their thing, someone's yelling at them because they're obviously not handicapped, and yet they're using a handicap placard from their rear view mirror. And the person's like, I know I'm not handicapped. I'm borrowing this vehicle, and I'm not parked in a handicapped zone. And they went into the store. When they came out, this person was still there, and now there was a cop there. And the person yelling and screaming about how this person was unjustly, and the cop was very confused because the car was not parked in a handicap zone, and this person is still yelling and screaming at them. That didn't work out for the person yelling and screaming. It worked out just fine for the person with the car because they weren't breaking the law in any way, shape, or form. It's not illegal to drive a car around with a handicap placard or a handicap plate if you're not handicapped. You can do that. Just you can't use the parking spot, and they weren't. So they were in the right, and the screaming person was just unhinged. But that kind of thing happens all the time, and it often doesn't end as humorously as that particular case did. Like I said, didn't end well for that person. I believe they got arrested for making a public nuisance. But we have to respect invisible disabilities, invisible illnesses, because we don't know the other person's story. We don't know their personal suffrage and suffering. Sorry, suffragettes. So yeah, we need to respect that. And don't be surprised when someone tells you that they have an illness, whether it's diabetes or anxiety, depression, and PTSD, which I also have. And I'm open about that. And that will sometimes surprise people as well, that I'm open about the fact that I have mental illness. But I don't see any reason to hide it. Isn't anything shameful. I didn't ask for it. It wasn't a request. Um, Part of it's genetic, and part of it was bequeathed to me by bad parenting. Um, so, yeah, respect people. Respect their illnesses and their disabilities, even if you can't see why they are ill or disabled. That's just being